Oh, yeah. Uh, yeah, well, you know what? Go ahead and do that now because later on you'll not be doing that. The hard thing for me to do when I'm trying to get stuff into 3 weeks. I got 3 weeks to bring something that might be useful, might be beneficial, and it makes me very, very nervous, very, very uncomfortable. So you'll know to start out with that I am not comfortable up here. But I got to thinking about, well, what should I do for these 3 weeks, and how could I do it where if I didn't get it finished, it would be okay. And so I said, you know what? We've been having a men's class on Friday mornings for several months now. And during that men's class, we've been talking and studying the book of John. And in the book of John, in the 6th chapter, it talks about Jesus calls himself the bread or the bread of life. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, you know what? The bread. Well, I know that Jesus was called the light because he says, I am the light. And I know he was called many, many other things. How many things was Jesus called? How many different names did Jesus have? And why were those names relevant? Why did they mean it? Why was he called so many things, and did they have different meanings? So I thought that we would start looking at some of those names and seeing why they were relevant at that time and how are they relevant in our day. So I did like every good student should do, and I devoutly studied the whole Bible. The whole Bible last week. I studied the whole Bible this last week, and I came up with a list of names. Or maybe I went to the internet and I said, how many names was Jesus called? How many titles did Jesus have? And do you know how many it came up with? Without looking at the internet, does anybody know? How many? 30? How many? 70? 7? 7? Do you know that the internet says there are 198 different titles that Jesus had? Either names or titles that he had.
Well, you didn't say that. You said that.
Well, I think I said names and titles. I think, huh? I didn't study every 198 of them, so I can't give you that answer.
I could come up with 6 right now, but I'm stuffed right now. Beyond 6.
So what I did was I came up with a list. So give me some names. Rabbi? Prince of Peace? The Nazarene. What'd you say? Counselor? Teacher? Huh? Savior? Redeemer? Hosanna? How many have we've already named off what? 10? Yeah, I mean, and that's y'all not even thinking about it. Do what? Thank you. It's not like I wasn't nervous enough as it is. Now I have critics out in the audience. Oh, wait. Oh, that's just Dee Dee. Never mind. How about bread of life? Lord. I mean, that's pretty Creator. Son of the living God. The beloved. That, in fact, the next one I was going to say is only begotten Son and the beloved Son. Holy One of Israel. In Isaiah 9 and 6, it says, Wonderful Counselor, the Almighty, the Everlasting, the Prince of Peace. All of those in one verse. King of Kings. I'm sorry, having trouble this morning. Head of the church, the Almighty, the Alpha and Omega, Master, King of the Jews, High Priest, Emmanuel, Advocate, Mediator, Judge, Chief Cornerstone. I know all of y'all knew that one, but nobody thought to say it, did they? Yeah, no, it is. It's hard to think of it. Author and finisher of our faith. Lamb of God. Good Shepherd. The Word. I got to get another list. Fountain of living water. The rock. Messiah. I think somebody said that a while ago. True vine. Branches. Bridegroom. The Lion of the tribe of Israel, of Judah, tribe of Judah. The bright morning star. The image of the invisible God. I am. Son of man. Carpenter. The way, the truth, and the life. King of Israel. Christ. That's 50. That's 50 of the 198 names. And you think about those names and you go, why would we call so many things so many different places? Any idea? Was that me? Oh, it was Janine. Okay. Any ideas? Do what? Okay. Country, the region. Situation. I think that.
Especially in John, all those I am statements, he's not mentioned anywhere telling these people who knew that Torah, well, they knew the whole Old Testament, they had the Torah, the prophets, all of it. He's not saying, hey, maybe I'm the one. It's a resounding, I'm the from Genesis chapter 2 or chapter 3, the seed of the woman. They would have known, they would have known all that. They would have known the story's looking for a son to redeem the people from the very beginning. And he's, whatever they've called him for thousands of years, that character in the story that they're all waiting on, for sure, I am. I'm the one from the beginning. One with the Father, the Son that the story's looking for from Genesis chapter 2. On and on and on and on and on. Hey, I'm not maybe one of the ones or one of the, I'm not, they've been building to this moment throughout human history, and he's saying, it's here.
It's here. It's here.
It's me.
All of those. I'm so sorry. All of those names meant something to the people who either wrote those or who he was talking to. So today, I want to focus more on the next 2 or 3 weeks. I want to focus more on what are the names that Jesus called himself. Not what did other people call him, not what writers wrote about, but what did Jesus call himself? And since we started in John the 6th chapter, we're going to go there. John the 6th chapter. That's not the John with a 1, 2, or 3 in front of it. That's the original John in the Gospels of John. I'm sorry. It's John, just John the 6th chapter. And we're going to read quite a bit of this, but I think it's important that and I took my notes out of where I had my marker. So we're going to read 22 to 60. So the days following, when the people stood on the other side of the sea, saw that there was none other boat there, save that the one that his disciples were entered. And that Jesus went not with his disciples in the boat, but that the disciples were gone away alone. Howbeit there came other boats from Tiberias, nigh to the place where they had eaten bread after the Lord had given thanks. So, to set this up, this is just right after he fed the 5,000, right? He fed the 5,000, and what did he feed the 5,000 with? 2 loaves, 5. Okay, or is it? Okay. So he feeds those people, and those people come back to the same place. Well, he had gotten. Jesus said, "Y'all go ahead. The disciples go ahead and go in the boat. I'll meet you there." It's the same time that Peter walked on the water. Just before this, at the same time Peter walked on the water. Jesus came to the boat and he said, "Okay." They said, "Yeah, come in," because the storm had been raging and raging. And so Jesus got in the boat with them, and immediately the boat was to the other side. And so these people come to the place where Jesus was at the day before, and he's not there. And they knew that the disciples had got in the boat and had went. Well, where's Jesus? So another boat comes along, and they go to Capernaum, where Jesus is at. And they said, "How did you get here? How'd you get here?" When people therefore saw Jesus was not there, neither his disciples, they also took shipping and came to Capernaum to seek Jesus. And when they found him on the other side of the sea, they said unto him, "Rabbi, when camest thou here?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "Verily, verily, I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw miracles, but because you did eat of the loaves and were filled." You were eat of the loaves and were filled. Labor not for the meat which perisheth, but for the meat that endureth unto everlasting life, which is the Son of Man, which the Son of Man shall give you. For him hath God and the Father sealed. Then they said unto him, "What shall we do that we might work the works of God?" And Jesus answered unto them, "This is the work of God, that you believe on me, you believe on him whom he hath sent." And they said unto him, "What sign showeth thou then, that we may see and believe thee? What dost thou work? Our fathers ate manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." And Jesus said unto him, "Verily, verily, I say to you, Moses gave you not the bread from heaven, but from my Father. But my Father giveth you true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he which comes down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. Then say they unto him, Lord, even more, give us this bread. And Jesus said unto him, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. But I say to you that ye also have seen me and believe not. All the Father gives me shall come to me, and him that come to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me. For this is the Father's will which he hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again in the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up in the last day. And the Jews then murmured at Jesus because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. And they said, is this not the son of Joseph, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he say, I come down from heaven? And Jesus therefore answered and said to them, murmur not amongst yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him. And I will raise him up in the last day. It is written in the prophets that they shall all, and they shall be all taught of God. Every man therefore that not heareth, and hath learned of the Father comes to me. Not that any man hath seen the Father, save he that is of the God, he hath seen the Father. Verily I say unto you, that he that believeth on me hath everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your father did eat manna in the wilderness, and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof, and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. For any man, if any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give him is my flesh, which I will give him for the life of the world. Then Jews therefore strove among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say to you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, ye shall have no life in you. Whosoever eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwell in me, and I in him. As the living Father has sent me, I live by my Father. So he hath eaten me, even he shall live by me. This is the bread which came down from heaven, not as your father did eat manna and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live forever. What did Jesus call himself? Bread of life. Why? Why did he use bread of life?
Bread is a staple. People rely on bread for life. Jesus is the staple. He's necessary for life.
Okay, what had just happened the day before?
He fed 5,000.
With what? Bread. Yes.
This, again, for the Hebrew people, the bread of life thing, that's all the way back to Exodus.
16.
What sustained the people through what seemed to be the biggest calamity they'd ever been through was
manna.
Manna from heaven. But the other huge language there is that I am language to the Hebrew people. Because that's equating, again, he's equating himself with
God,
mind.
God, right.
Before God. Him using that language, just the I am statement in and of itself, he's not mincing words. It's not he's not speaking in parable. It's not a guess which hand it's in. It's not I have the bread of life. I am the bread of life.
That's correct. So we look in Exodus, the 16th chapter, and we have the story. We have the story of the Israelites coming out of Egypt. And they're leaving a destructive, or how do I say it? Oppression from the Egyptians, right?
Slavery.
Huh?
They're enslaved.
They're enslaved. They're slavery. They're slaved. And they just walked through the Red Sea. And it says there was a wall to the east and a wall to the west. And they walked through on dry ground. Power of God? Did they see it firsthand? Huh? Yeah. They get to the other side of the sea. They've been in their journey for how long before they start murmuring?
5 minutes.
Are we there yet?
It says the 15th day of the second month from when they left Egypt.
Month and a half.
About 45 days. About 45 days. How long does it take us to forget what God does?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. 45 seconds.
We always like to say that if I saw a miracle, then I would have more faith or whatever. It's not true.
That's not.
The Bible repeatedly tells us that.
It's more like happy do that.
I mean, in their defense, they're standing in an unknown wilderness, and these are people that have been enslaved for 400 years. It's not Jeremiah Johnson and his family that know exactly what to do. These are people that have had decisions made for them for 400 years, told where to go and what to do. I mean, yes, they've crossed the Red Sea, but now that's 45 days ago, and we're all hungry and don't know where to go and don't know what's going to happen next.
What's the
future's
size,
not
too?
laid out for us like we thought it would be. What's going on here?
It's a couple million people. How many million? It's a large.
Well, it was
It's not like we have it's just like our church congregation.
wasn't it 600,000 men?
Yeah, so it's a couple.
And and men were only counted at age what? 30?
Yeah.
30?
So
Well, there's no telling how many.
All their women and children. So it's a couple million people.
But you got to realize too what had happened in Egypt before they got to the Red Sea. What had happened? All the plagues. They had been through all the plagues. They had seen the death of the firstborn. God said, "Get ready, go." Hey, I mean, it wasn't like they just saw one thing. I mean, they saw lots of things.
But it's human nature.
It's human nature.
If we all sat down on an individual level and said, "Man, how many times have you seen God show up in your life?" And and it's like we go through that same cycle. God saves us, everything's great, we love you. We sort of forget over time, and I'm an idiot, and oh my gosh, God saved me again. That's us. We all live in that loop.
So God's, they start murmuring in the wilderness. And God says, "Okay, I got you. I mean, you need food. That's okay. Well, I got you." Said, "There's going to be this stuff come down from heaven.
Temporal stuff come down from heaven.
This stuff going to come down from heaven. And you're going to have to go. You're going to have to go pick it up. But if you'll do what I tell you, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." So he says, 6 days, you go out, you gather omer. And I even looked that up. An omer is about a little more than half a gallon. It's like 0.061 gallons. You pick that up every day for 5 days. Really, for 5 days you pick that up. On the 6th day, you pick up enough for 2 days. Is that right? 5? And on the 6th day, you pick up enough for 2 days. And not only do you pick up enough for 2 days, on the 6th day, you cook what you're going to eat for the next day. You'll be fine. So, Moses tells them what the deal is. He says, now you go, you pick up enough for you for that day.
One day. I'm getting in.
And so what did they do? They went out and some of them picked up way more than they were supposed to. Some of them didn't pick up enough. And what happened the next morning? Worm, rotten. Not only was it worms, but it was some stinking worms. He said, hey, what's the deal? You didn't do what I said. And then when it came down to the second day, here's this, they got this manna and they cooked it, and as long as they cooked it, everything's fine. But there were some that didn't pick up manna on the 6th day and cook it, and they went out the 7th day, and what happened to them? They went hungry because, guess what? There was no manna there for them to eat. Because God said, how long do I need to put up with this? So what did the bread do for them? Sustained life, right? It sustained life. Did they have to do anything to have their life sustained? You mean they had to physically go out and do something? You mean God supplied it? God supplied it. But He didn't put it in their mouths, did He? And they had to do it a certain way. Because there were certain restrictions on how to do it. So we think about that. When we think about Jesus is the bread of life, what's the first thing that you immediately go to? Spiritual. In the reading that we had in John, did anything pop? Because it did in my mind. Something kept popping up in my mind. What? The communion. The communion. We take the bread. And in that reading, he says, if you eat the bread and drink the blood. Now, how do you think those people felt at that time about the flesh? Eating the flesh. I mean, he says, unless you eat my flesh. How do you think you would have felt you would have, wouldn't you have kind of go, ugh, I don't want to do that. And I sure don't want to drink your blood.
In the Jews' defense, their philosophy was very legalistic. It was a checks off thing. And it was very literal. And so God is telling them, drink this blood. And in their mind, they're hearing the very literal
when somebody said, be born again, and they're like, how can I
How
come out of my mom's womb?
Exactly.
So they really are they're thinking that way.
They're legitimately thinking that way. But why do some still believe? And why do some? Because I don't think I read that last little bit of that, which said, no, it's not there. It's not. That's not the one I'm thinking. There is one place right here close, and it may be. Yeah. Well, but it talks about how some of them just said, "That's just more than I can handle. That's not something I can handle," and they quit. They just quit. They just backed out. Said, "I can't handle that." What verse?
It's further down.
66. Okay, I thought it was in this. Yeah.
In 60 it says,
Yes.
this is a hard teaching, who can accept it? And then it goes on and explains.
Yes. So it is. But why did some of them hang on?
Because they understood it spiritually, he was talking about not doing it.
Because they understood, because of his reference back to Exodus and the manna, and how that manna sustained the life, and that it was given by God. It was manna brought down from heaven. Jesus saying, "I am the manna brought down from heaven. I am the bread of life." So you say, "Well, okay." You know, it reminds me of communion, but why is that important to me today? I mean, it's done, right? It's all over with.
It should still be sustaining you. Jesus should be sustaining us.
Why?
He said he was going to.
Okay. Are we not? Let me go here, Jason. I know you got all the. I know, but let me go here. As the Israelites left Egypt, what did they leave? We said it earlier. Slavery. And then what did they do? They went into the wilderness for. But what were they promised? A land flowing with milk and honey. Where are we today? Where are we today?
We're still wandering in the desert.
We're still wandering in the desert. When we obey the gospel, we have come out of that slavery of sin. And now we are wandering in the wilderness. Jesus sustains us. He gives us what we need. It's there. It's in front of us. It's the manna. How do we obtain it? Don't we have to do something? Don't we have to pick it up? Don't we have to read it? Don't we have to understand it? And wait a minute. There were some instructions in there too, wasn't it, on exactly how to use it. Aren't we supposed to do the same? Our lives are as the Israelites. We are wandering in the wilderness. And Jesus is the bread of life for us. And he sustains us until we can reach the promised land. What's your goal in life? What's your goal in life? Salvation. Because why? There's more to this world. There's something better out there. There's a land flowing with milk and honey. Are we going to walk toward that land? Are we going to do the things that we need to do to get us there? The same way the Israelites walked. They didn't all make it. But some of them did. And that manna was there all the way until they reached the promised land. The same way Christ is with us. He is the bread of life for us until we reach the promised land. Thank you very much. Next week we'll talk about something else that Jesus calls himself.